They had no idea who arrive. Then the Deathworlders from the galaxy emerged. That was why the summit of many worlds happened only once every 1,000 cycles. It was not a place for surprise. It was not a place for risk. It was a ceremony as much as it was diplomacy. Polished floors, soft lights, gentle music, and careful schedules that left no room for panic. Station Astor Vale floated in the calm shadow of a pale blue gas giant. It was huge, ring-shaped, and beautiful in a way that made most species feel safe just by looking at it. The station's outer hull shimmered with a protective field, and its docking arms spread like open hands. Inside, the grand hall waited. Ambassador Sally Varn stood behind a curved desk of clear crystal foam, watching the arrivals through a wide window. Sally was a Kethri, tall and thin, with silver skin that reflected light like moonstone. Her eyes were large and dark, built for twilight worlds. Her hands rested calmly on her diplomatic tablet, but her mind was not calm, because of the last name on the schedule. She checked it again as if the letters might change. Humanity, Sol System, Earth, Class 12 Deathworld, attendance, confirmed. That could not be right. A Class 12 world was not just dangerous. It was a warning label in planet form: heavy gravity, violent weather, tectonic instability, aggressive life, microbes that treated every living thing as a battlefield. Class 12 worlds were the kind of places the conquered studied from a distance. They were not the kind of places that produced stable spacefaring civilizations. They were not the kind of places that sent diplomats, yet the confirmation tag was there. The ship's transponder code was clean. The approach vector was perfect. The station systems recognized it as real. Sally's assistant, a small Nimmery named Plo, hovered beside her desk with nervous energy. Plo's fur stood slightly on end, and his long ears kept flicking toward the window. "Ambassador," Plo whispered, "is it safe to keep the docking bay open?" Sally kept her voice steady, the way she had been trained. "The conquered invited them." "We will not insult a guest before they even arrive," Plo swallowed. "But a Deathworld species?" Sally tapped her tablet once, bringing up the official file. The screen filled with red hazard symbols. There were notes from scientists, warnings from explorers, and a long list of reasons why no conquered ship had ever landed on Earth for more than a few hours. Then there was the strangest line of all: contact method, long-range signal exchange. No physical delegation attempted until now, so this would be the first time most of the galaxy saw a human in person. The grand hall behind Sally was already filling with delegates, floating beings in shimmering spheres, tall insect-like diplomats with carefully folded wings. Short, round species that rolled on soft pads. Air breathers, liquid breathers, heat eaters, light sippers, each one with its own needs, its own climate bubble, its own quiet rules. They came from gentle worlds. Most of them had evolved without constant threat. Their civilizations were built on comfort, stability, and slow change. They had rules for everything. And now, a species from a world that tried to kill its own life every day was about to step inside. A chime sounded across the hall, soft and musical, chosen to avoid startling sensitive species. Above, the arrival board displayed a new message: incoming vessel, UNV Dawn Speech. Sally watched as the ship appeared on the screen. It slid from the dark like a patient thought. It was not huge, but it was solid-looking, built with thick lines and strong curves. It did not spin or drift. It moved as if it trusted itself completely. A few nearby ambassadors turned to look. Conversations thinned. The air of the hall felt tighter, not because of pressure, but because of attention. The docking arm extended. The ship matched its speed perfectly. No hesitation, no correction. A clean lock. Sally's tablet buzzed with an internal message from station control. Docking Bay 7 secured. Atmosphere set to human request. Gravity request 1 standard. Temperature 293 Kelvin. Humidity moderate. No unusual chemical demands. Sally frowned. "No unusual demands?" she murmured. Plo blinked. "Is that strange?" "It means they can tolerate what we call standard." Sally looked around at the many species who needed special air mixes, salt fogs, heat fields, or pressure domes. Or they are pretending they can. The station's protocol required a welcome party. That meant someone had to meet them at the airlock. Sally straightened her robe and lifted her diplomatic tablet. "Come," she told Plo. "We will greet them ourselves." Plo's ears drooped. "Personally?" "Yes," Sally said, and surprised herself by meaning it. "If they are brave enough to come, we can be brave enough to say hello." They walked through the corridor that led to Docking Bay 7. The hallways here were quieter, built for function instead of ceremony. A pair of security drones floated near the ceiling, their lights dim to avoid looking threatening. At the end of the corridor, the bay opened up, wide and bright. The human ship sat attached to the station like a dark seed ready to sprout. A thin line of frost clung to the edges of its hatch. It had come from cold space into warm air, and the metal was adjusting. Selly took her place by the marked greeting zone. Plo stood half a step behind her as etiquette demanded, though he looked like he wanted to stand 50 steps behind. The airlock indicator glowed, green, a hiss soft and controlled. The hatch rotated open. For a moment nothing happened, then a figure appeared. It was not wearing armor. It was wearing a simple, clean uniform. Dark fabric, light trim, a small symbol on the chest shaped like a circle with lines, maybe their planet, maybe their star. The figure stepped forward and stopped at the threshold, as if making sure the station's gravity felt correct. Selly expected something towering, something sharp, something built like a predator. Instead, the human looked ordinary. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. Skin a warm, medium tone. Hair cut short. No horns, no claws, no visible weapons. The eyes were forward-facing, which did carry a predator's hint, but the expression was calm, almost gentle. Behind the first human, more figures appeared, 3 others. One carried a small case. Another held a thin tablet. The third wore a medical patch on the sleeve. They moved with smooth confidence, not rushing, not hesitating. The first human stepped fully into the bay and placed a hand on their chest, then lowered it, an unknown gesture that felt like respect. They spoke and the station's translator picked it up. "Ambassador Selly Varn of the Galactic Concord," the translator said in a clear voice. "I am Mara Ellison, envoy of the United Nations of Earth. Thank you for receiving us." Selly blinked once. The translator had no trouble with the words. That meant the human language database was already well developed. "Envoy Ellison," Selly replied, keeping her voice formal. "Welcome to Astor Vale," Mara smiled. The expression lifted the human's face in a way that softened the forward eyes. "It's an honor. We've read about this summit for a long time." Selly studied her. No trembling, no signs of sickness, no heavy breathing, even under the station's standard gravity. "How was your journey?" Selly asked carefully. "Long," Mara said, "but smooth. Your navigation beacons are excellent." That was a simple compliment, but Selly noticed something beneath it. Humans did not fear long. They treated it like an expected cost. Plo whispered too quietly for the translator to catch, but loud enough for Selly. "They look so small." Selly did not respond, but she understood what he meant. The human was not physically large compared to many species. Even Selly herself was taller. And yet the human's posture made the space around her feel organized, like she had brought her own calm with her. Mara gestured lightly toward the others behind her. "May I introduce my team? Dr. Kata Rao, Medical Liaison, Engineer Tomas Ibarra, Systems Specialist. Cultural Officer June Park." Each one stepped forward in turn and repeated the hand-on-chest gesture. Selly returned a respectful nod. "Your presence is unexpected." Mara's smile turned a little wry, like she understood the fear behind polite words. "We get that a lot." Selly hesitated, then decided honesty was safer than pretending. "Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. Many here believed your species could not travel safely or endure the station environment." Mara's eyebrows rose slightly. "Class 12, she repeated, tasting the phrase. "That sounds dramatic." "It is meant to be," Selly said. Mara glanced around the docking bay at the bright lights and soft hum of station life. "Where I'm from," she said, "dramatic is normal." Plo made a small squeak. Dr. Rao leaned forward a fraction, his voice calm. "Ambassador, we respect the Concord's caution, but humans have lived with risk from the start. We don't love danger, but we're used to it." Selly's eyes narrowed slightly. "Used to it?" Engineer Ibarra gave a quiet laugh. "Our planet is beautiful, but it does not forgive mistakes, so we learn fast." Selly had read those words in old explorer notes. Earth does not forgive mistakes. But seeing a person say it so simply was different. It made the danger feel real in a new way. A station attendant approached, carrying a small hovering tray of welcome tokens, standard practice. The attendant was a delicate Lurin with transparent wings and a nervous twitch. They offered the tray to Mara with trembling hands. Mara noticed immediately. She lowered her hands, slowed her movements, and stepped back half a pace to give the attendant space. Her voice softened. Thank you, she said carefully, taking only one token as if she did not want to overwhelm the tray. The attendant's wings fluttered in relief. Sally felt something shift inside her. Not fear exactly, something like confusion, a predator species would have taken. A dominating species would have demanded. But the Deathworlder was being considerate. Mara placed the token in her pocket and looked back at Sally. We've prepared a short greeting for the Grand Hall if that fits your schedule. It does, Sally said automatically, then realized she meant it. But I must ask, why come in person now? Why risk it? Mara's face grew serious but not heavy, more like steady. Because we've been watching your broadcasts for decades, she said. We saw a galaxy trying to stay peaceful. We saw species working together instead of taking from each other. And we realized something. Sally leaned slightly forward. What? Mara took a breath. Earth is hard. Humans are shaped by hardship, and we don't want to carry that hardness alone anymore. We want to bring what we learned, how to adapt, how to endure, how to help each other when everything goes wrong. Dr. Rao nodded. We have no interest in frightening anyone. We came to offer partnership. For a moment, the docking bay felt very quiet. Sally looked at them again, 4 humans standing under station lights, breathing calmly in a place built for 100 other kinds of life. Not demanding special treatment, not threatening, not boasting. Just arriving. The arrival announcement echoed softly through the corridor speakers. Delegation from Sol System, humanity, status, present, Plo swallowed hard. They're really here. Sally turned toward the corridor that led back to the Grand Hall where thousands of eyes would soon be waiting. She met Mara's gaze. The human's eyes were steady, open, and strangely warm. Envoy Ellison, Sally said, the summit of many worlds welcomes you. Please walk with me. Mara nodded, and the human team followed. As they moved down the corridor, Sally found her fear shrinking, replaced by a sharper feeling, curiosity, because the galaxy had invited a Deathworld species by mistake, and now that mistake was walking calmly into the heart of peace. And Sally had the sudden, quiet sense that the galaxy would never be the same again. Thousands of delegates filled the wide chamber, seated in layers that curved upward like a gentle bowl. Soft lights adjusted automatically for dozens of different eyes. Climate fields overlapped without touching. The air carried faint scents from 100 worlds, and at the center walkway, 4 humans walked forward. Ambassador Sally Varn moved with measured grace, but even she felt the weight of the moment. She could feel attention pressing in from every side. Sensors, eyes, and minds followed the humans with deep focus. The humans did not rush. They did not stop either. They walked at a steady pace, their steps firm under the station's gravity. Each step landed cleanly, as if the floor belonged to them. Envoy Mara Ellison led the group. Her posture was relaxed, her hands open at her sides. She looked around with clear interest, not fear. Behind her, Dr. Rao scanned the environment quietly, while Engineer Ibarra's eyes kept drifting to the ceiling and walls, clearly curious about the station's design. Cultural Officer Park observed the delegates themselves, reading faces and body language. They reached the central platform. Sally raised one hand, signaling the hall systems. Delegates of the Galactic Concord, her voice echoed gently, adjusted for every hearing range. I present the representatives of humanity from the Sol system. A ripple moved through the hall. Whispers began immediately. They're small. They breathe oxygen at that pressure. No protective fields. That one has no armor at all. Several species shifted uneasily. A few delegates leaned backward as if distance alone could protect them. Others leaned forward, curiosity overpowering caution. Above the platform, a massive holodisplay activated. It showed Earth, blue oceans, white clouds, green land, beautiful. Then the display changed. Storm systems larger than continents, cracked fault lines, volcanic chains, temperature maps that swung wildly between extremes. A list of native pathogens scrolled past so fast it blurred. A soft murmur spread through the hall. A death world. Myra stepped forward when Sally nodded to her. She did not raise her voice. She didn't need to. Honored delegates, Myra said, thank you for allowing us to stand here. The translator rendered her words smoothly. We know our presence is unexpected, she continued. Our homeworld is difficult. A few delegates made soft sounds of agreement. Difficult was a polite word. Myra allowed herself a small smile. Where we come from, the ground shakes, the sky burns, the cold can kill, and the heat can kill. Even the smallest life can be dangerous if ignored. Several alien eyes widened. Myra gestured lightly toward the Earth image. But it's also home. Dr. Rao stepped forward next, activating his tablet. The holo display shifted again, now showing a human body scan. Selly noticed the reaction immediately. Gasps, clicks, sharp intakes of breath. Human bones were dense, muscles were thick. Organs were layered with redundancy. The immune system display alone drew stunned silence. Dr. Rao spoke calmly. Human bodies evolved under constant stress. Gravity on Earth is higher than conquered standard. Injuries were common. Infection was constant. He paused, letting the information settle. Survival required adaptation. A tall, crystal-skinned delegate from a low-gravity world raised a limb. Your species should not exist, they said bluntly. There was no insult in the words, only confusion. Myra nodded once. That's fair. A ripple of surprise moved through the hall. Many species would have bristled. Humans did not. Engineer Ibarra stepped forward, his voice warm. We shouldn't exist. Statistically, biologically, logically, we know. Our own scientists say it often. A few delegates leaned closer. But Earth never asked if survival was reasonable, Ibarra continued. It just demanded it. The holo display shifted again, now showing human history. Early shelters, fire, agriculture, medicine, cities rising, falling, rising again. No single moment of triumph, just constant effort. Selly watched the delegates carefully. Fear was still there, but something else was growing beside it. Understanding. A small aquatic delegate spoke next, their voice bubbling through a translator field. Your people live so close to death. Does that not make you aggressive? Myra shook her head gently. It makes us careful. That answer caused another ripple. Cultural Officer Park took her turn. On Earth, danger is common, so cooperation became valuable. Empathy became survival. Helping someone else often meant helping yourself later. She gestured toward the hall. We learned early that we are stronger together, not because we like each other all the time, but because isolation gets you killed. The word killed caused a slight stir, but there was no violence in the tone. It was simply fact. A winged delegate whispered to another, they speak of danger the way we speak of weather. Selly found that observation unsettling and accurate. As the presentation continued, medical data showed humans recovering from injuries that would end other species. Engineering logs showed human vessels built with backups upon backups. Social data showed humans forming communities even in hostile environments. Again and again the same theme appeared. Adaptation, expectation of failure, preparation. A senior conquered scientist finally spoke, their voice low and serious. Your civilization developed assuming disaster. Mara nodded. Yes. The scientist tilted their head. Most of ours developed assuming stability. Silence followed. That silence carried weight. Selly realized what the hall was feeling. It was not fear of attack. It was fear of comparison. The humans were not stronger in weapons. They were stronger in endurance. And yet, Selly said, stepping forward again, you come without demands, without threats. Mara met her gaze, because we didn't come to prove anything. She looked around the hall, meeting many eyes without challenge. We came because survival taught us something important, Myra said. Hard worlds don't make you powerful, they make you responsible. That sentence echoed longer than any alarm. A soft chime rang as the presentation ended. For a moment, no one spoke. Then a young delegate from a peaceful garden world stood, hands shaking slightly. If your people live with so much danger, they asked, why do you still smile? Mara seemed surprised by the question. She thought for a moment. Because we're still here, she said simply. Every day we wake up is a success. Smiling reminds us of that. The hall did not erupt into applause. That was not conquered custom. Instead, something rarer happened. Respect. Delegates began adjusting their posture, not pulling away, but aligning. Data requests quietly pinged human tablets. Medical exchanges were suggested. Environmental engineers leaned forward, eager to ask questions. Plo, standing behind Selly, whispered, they're not afraid anymore. Selly corrected him softly. They are afraid. She watched a dozen species studying the humans with new eyes. But now, Selly said, they are also learning. Myra stepped back beside her team. The humans stood calmly, waiting. They did not push. They did not fill the silence. They trusted it. Selly realized then that humanity's greatest difference was not their death world. It was their patience. Above the platform, the Earth image slowly faded, replaced by a simple symbol, a small blue dot surrounded by stars. The galaxy had expected monsters. Instead, it had met survivors. The station's systems worked on balance, stable power flow, calm temperatures, predictable movement. Nothing was meant to change suddenly. Nothing was meant to go wrong without warning. So when the lights dimmed for exactly half a second, almost no one noticed. Almost. Engineer Tomas Ibarra did. He stopped mid-step as he walked beside the human delegation through a side corridor near the Grand Hall. His eyes narrowed and he tilted his head slightly as if listening to something only he could hear. "Did you feel that?" he asked quietly. Dr. Rao frowned. "Gravity fluctuation?" "No," Ibarra said. "Power dip very small." Cultural Officer Park looked around. "No alarms." "That's what worries me," Ibarra replied. Inside the Grand Hall, Ambassador Seli Varn was speaking with a group of delegates, answering polite questions about humanity's presentation. The mood had softened. Fear had turned into controlled curiosity. Then the lights dimmed again. This time it lasted a full second. A low murmur spread across the hall. Before Seli could signal station control, a soft chime sounded, different from the usual calm alerts. "Attention. Minor systems recalibration in progress. Please remain calm." The words were polite, reassuring. But Seli's skin cooled slightly. Aster Vale did not recalibrate during a summit. Plo hovered closer to her. "Ambassador, that message wasn't scheduled." Seli nodded. "I know." Across the hall, several delegates began shifting uneasily. Species that relied on constant environmental control reacted first. Temperature-sensitive beings flickered in color. Aquatic tanks adjusted pressure with visible effort. Then the floor trembled. It was not strong, barely noticeable, but enough to break the illusion of perfect stability. The hall fell silent. A second alert chimed in, less calm this time. Station control reports localized power instability, cause under investigation. Seli turned sharply toward the human delegation who had re-entered the hall. Mara Ellison was already speaking quietly with Ibarra. "What's happening?" Seli asked as they approached. Ibarra answered honestly. "Something external is stressing your systems, Doctor." Rao glanced at the ceiling displays. "Radiation spike?" "Not exactly," Ibarra said. His fingers moved quickly across his tablet. "Your station is passing through a stellar interference wave, rare but not impossible," Seli stiffened. "That path was cleared centuries ago." "Yes," Ibarra agreed, "but space doesn't care about old plans." Before Seli could respond, a louder alert echoed. "Warning. Environmental controls in sectors 4 through 7 are destabilizing. Panic did not explode, it crept. Delegates began calling assistance. Some tried to retreat toward their climate zones. Others froze, unsure what protocol applied to an unscheduled failure. Seli felt the room slipping. "Station control," she said firmly into her tablet. "Status update." The reply came with static. "We are recalculating, multiple systems affected," the message cut off. That was when Mara stepped forward. "Ambassador," she said calmly, "may we assist?" Seli hesitated. Concord protocol did not include asking newly arrived Deathworlders for help during a crisis. But protocol also did not include losing control of the summit station. "Yes," Seli said. "Please." Mara turned to her team. "Okay, you know the drill." There was no panic in her voice, no raised volume, just focus. Ibarra moved immediately, kneeling near a station access panel. "Your systems are clean, but they rely too heavily on single points of balance." He connected his tablet through a standard interface. "You don't expect failure. That's the problem." Dr. Rao moved toward a cluster of delegates whose environmental field was flickering. "Who here requires high humidity and low temperature?" he asked clearly. Several beings raised appendages. "Stay close together," Rao instructed gently. "Your fields can overlap safely for a short time." A nearby Concord medic looked startled. "That's not standard procedure." Rao nodded. "It works anyway." Park moved through the hall, speaking softly but firmly. "Please remain seated unless your physiology requires movement. Panic increases system load." Her voice, steady and human, cut through the rising tension. The lights dimmed again. This time, parts of the hall went dark. A sharp cry came from the upper tier as a gravity field wavered. A few delegates floated slightly before stabilizers kicked in. Several species reacted with visible distress. Seli felt it too, the fear, the loss of control. Then she noticed something strange. The humans did not change. Their breathing stayed even. Their posture stayed grounded. They adjusted instantly, feet spreading slightly, bodies compensating without thought. They had lived with instability before. Ibara spoke quickly to station control through an open channel. Your power routing is too elegant. Reroute manually, except inefficiency. Static answered him. Fine, Ibara muttered. We'll show you. His fingers flew across the interface, creating temporary bypasses, messy, imperfect, but strong. Lights flared back on in sections. A wave of relief rolled through the hall. Selly stared. You're overriding our systems. Borrowing, Ibara corrected. With respect. Another tremor passed through the station, slightly stronger this time. Park raised her voice, not loud but clear. Everyone listen, the station is stable enough. Fear is normal, but you are not in danger right now. A delegate snapped. How can you be sure? Park met their gaze. Because if things were truly dangerous, the humans would already be running. That caused a pause. Then a strange thing happened. Some delegates laughed, not loudly, not joyfully, but with release. Doctor. Rao worked beside conquered medics, adapting tools on the fly. Your biologies differ, but stress responses overlap. Breathing patterns, circulation, these are universal. He showed them how to adjust support fields manually. You're comfortable touching unknown systems, a medic observed. Rao smiled faintly. We learned early that waiting for perfect information can be worse than acting. Above the hall, the holodisplay flickered back to life, now showing the interference wave, an invisible storm of energy passing slowly through the station's path. Selly watched it move. So this is not an attack, she said. Mara shook her head. Just nature. Selly exhaled slowly. Our greatest enemy. Mara considered that. Ours too, we just argue with it more. Minutes passed, then more. The station groaned softly as systems adapted. Power rerouted. Environmental controls stabilized. The alerts softened. Systems holding. Station control resuming command. A long breath seemed to pass through Astor Vale. Delegates settled back into their places. Some leaned against support frames. Others sat quietly, processing what had happened. Selly turned to Mara. You acted without hesitation. Mara nodded. Hesitation is a luxury on Earth. Ibara stood, wiping his hands on his uniform. Your station will be fine, but you might want to redesign a few things. Selly gave a short, stunned laugh. You arrive as guests, and within one cycle you save our summit. Mara's expression grew serious. We didn't save it. We supported it, Park added. You already had everything you needed, you just weren't used to things going wrong. A senior delegate approached Selly slowly. Their voice was quiet. Ambassador, the humans did not panic. Selly nodded. No, they did not demand authority. No. They simply helped. Yes, the delegate looked at the human team with something like awe. Is this normal for them? Mara overheard and answered gently. When systems fail, yes. Selly looked around the hall. Species that had lived in comfort for millennia had nearly frozen in the face of uncertainty. Humans, new, dangerous, unexpected, had become anchors, not because they were fearless, but because fear was familiar. The final alert chimed. Station status stable. Summit may continue. A soft sound spread through the hall, not applause, but something deeper. Acceptance. Respect. Plo floated closer to Selly and whispered, Ambassador, the Deathworlders didn't bring danger. Selly watched Mara laugh quietly with a conquered engineer explaining something with her hands. No, Selly said softly. They brought experience. And for the first time since the summit began, the Galactic Conquered understood something vital. Peace built on perfection was fragile. But peace supported by those who survived chaos that could last. The grand hall of Astor Vale still looked calm, soft lights, steady gravity, balanced air. But something invisible had changed. The delegates were quieter now, not because they were afraid, but because they were thinking. The recent failure had left a mark, not on the walls, on the minds. Ambassador Selly Varn stood at her position, watching groups form across the hall. Species that rarely mixed were now gathered together, speaking in low tones. Many of them were watching the humans as they spoke among themselves, not with fear, with study. Envoy Mara Ellison noticed it too. She leaned slightly toward Cultural Officer Park. We're being observed, Park smiled faintly. That started the moment we arrived. No, Mara said softly. This is different. Before they were watching what we are, now they're watching how we think. Dr. Rao joined them. That tends to happen after a shared crisis. Across the hall, a conquered analyst activated a small holofield. Ambassador Selly, they said, several delegations have submitted the same request. Selly raised an eyebrow. Which is? They want to understand how the humans reacted so quickly to system failure. Selly looked toward the human delegation, then she nodded once. Very well, we will schedule an open forum. The announcement spread quickly. Soon, the humans stood again at the central platform, not as guests this time, but as speakers. Mara stepped forward, but she did not take the lead alone. She gestured to Ibara and Rao to stand beside her. This is not a lecture, Mara said calmly. It's a conversation. That eased the tension immediately. A delegate from a high-stability world spoke first. Their voice was careful. Your people identified the problem faster than our systems. How? Ibara answered simply. We assume things will break. A ripple of confusion passed through the hall. You assume failure? Another delegate asked. Yes, Ibara said. Not because we're pessimistic, because it's efficient. Selly noticed several conquered engineers exchanging glances. Dr. Rao continued. On Earth, stability is temporary, weather changes, ground shifts, illness spreads, systems that rely on perfection fail. Mara added, so we don't build for perfection, we build for recovery. A small delegate raised a limb. Is this Deathworld thinking? Park tilted her head. If you need a term, yes, we call it planning. The delegates murmured again. One of the senior Concord scholars activated a display showing station schematics. Your engineer described our systems as too elegant. That was not meant as a compliment. Ibara nodded. Elegance is beautiful, but beauty breaks when pushed too hard. He highlighted several nodes. You have single points of balance. When they fail, everything waits for them to recover. And what would you do differently? The scholar asked. Ibara smiled. Messy backups. That caused a few startled reactions. Redundancy, Rao explained. Multiple paths, some inefficient, some ugly, but they keep things running. Mara folded her hands. Humans learned early that survival is not about doing things the best way. It's about doing them enough times to learn. A delegate from a peaceful ocean world asked, Doesn't constant failure exhaust you? Mara paused, then she answered honestly. Sometimes. The word carried weight. But it also teaches you something important, she continued. Failure is not the end, it's feedback. The hall grew very still. Selly felt it then, the shift from curiosity to realization. This was not about engineering, this was about worldview. A conquered philosopher spoke next, their voice slow and thoughtful. Your logic assumes danger is normal. Yes, Park said. Our logic assumes danger is rare, Park nodded. That's the difference. The philosopher's eyes dimmed slightly. Then our peace is fragile, Selly stepped forward. And humanity, Mara looked at her. Ours is flexible. That single word echoed, flexible. The forum continued for hours. Humans answered questions without pride, without apology. They explained concepts like drills, contingency plans, shared responsibility, and emotional resilience. They spoke of teaching children what to do when things go wrong, not to scare them, but to prepare them. They spoke of building communities that expected hardship and still chose kindness. One delegate asked quietly, Does living on a death world make you hard, Doctor? Rao answered gently, It can if you let it. Mara added, But hardness alone doesn't help you survive, adaptability does. Selly watched faces change across the hall. Some delegates looked uncomfortable, others looked inspired. A term began appearing in Concord notes. Deathworld logic, not as an insult, as a classification. Later, during a recess, Selly invited the human team to a quieter observation deck. The stars drifted slowly beyond the transparent wall. You have unsettled the conquered, Selly said. Mara smiled. We were afraid of that. Not dangerously, Selly clarified. Philosophically, she turned to face them. For thousands of cycles, we believed peace came from eliminating risk. Ibara leaned on the railing. That works until something unexpected shows up, Selly nodded, like a stellar interference wave. Or a Deathworld species, Park added lightly. Selly allowed herself a soft laugh. Yes, she grew serious again. Your presence forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. Mara met her gaze. That wasn't our goal. But it may be the result, Selly said. Some delegates fear your way of thinking will destabilize the conquered. Rao frowned slightly. We don't want to break anything. Mara shook her head. We want to help strengthen it. Selly studied them, these humans shaped by chaos, standing calmly among stars. How would you advise us? She asked. Mara thought for a moment. Don't abandon your values, just test them. Ibara added, practice failure in small ways, learn from it. Park said softly, teach your people that stability is something you maintain, not something you inherit. Selly turned back to the stars. For the first time in her long diplomatic career, she felt uncertain, not from fear, but from growth. The galaxy had been built like glass. Beautiful, clear, brittle. Humans were flexible metal, not unbreakable, but willing to bend. As the recess ended, Selly knew the summit would continue, but its purpose had already changed. The Galactic Conquered had invited humanity by mistake. Now it was listening on purpose. And deep within its ancient laws, a quiet rewrite had begun, guided not by force, not by fear, but by a simple truth the Deathworlders carried with them. Survival is not about avoiding hardship. It is about learning how to live with it. And the galaxy was finally ready to learn. In the days after the forum on Deathworld logic, the Galactic Conquered continued its sessions as planned. Trade discussions resumed. Cultural exchanges moved forward. Official smiles returned. But beneath the calm, something else spread. Concerned, delegates whispered in private channels. Analysts compared notes. Philosophers argued late into the cycle. The question was never spoken aloud in the Grand Hall, but it existed everywhere else. If humans can endure so much, what could they do if they chose not to be kind? Ambassador Selly Varn sensed the shift immediately. Fear had returned, but it was different from before. This fear did not see humans as monsters. It saw them as possibilities. Envoy Myra Ellison felt it too. She noticed how conversations paused when she entered a room, how requests became more careful, how some delegates studied her as if measuring weight, not size. Cultural Officer Park said it first. "They're afraid of our potential." Myra nodded. "I can't blame them." Dr. Rao folded his hands. "Fear of capacity can be stronger than fear of intent." The Conquered Council called a closed session. No observers, no public records. Selly entered the smaller chamber alone. The air felt heavier here, even though the conditions were identical. Around the circular table sat representatives of the oldest member species. "This is not an accusation," one elder began. "It is a concern." Selly inclined her head. "Then speak it." "The humans have demonstrated resilience beyond our models," another said. "They function under stress, they adapt instantly, they remain calm during failure." "Yes," Selly agreed. "We all witnessed this." "Such traits," the elder continued, "could destabilize the balance of the Conquered." Selly felt a chill. "Because they are strong, because they are capable," the elder replied. Selly understood then. The Conquered feared domination not through force but through relevance. A species that could operate when others failed would naturally become central. "They have asked for nothing," Selly said. "Yet," one elder replied. The session ended without resolution. That night, Selly requested a private meeting with Mara. They met in a quiet garden module, a neutral space filled with soft bioluminescent plants. The air was calm. The stars were hidden behind living walls. "Some of my people are afraid of you," Selly said plainly. Mara did not look surprised. "I know. They fear what you could do." Mara smiled faintly. "We fear that too," Selly studied her. "Then why come?" Mara looked around the garden. "Because fear didn't stop us from helping during the failure, and it shouldn't stop us from helping now." The next cycle, the humans made an unexpected request. They asked to address the full Conquered again. Publicly, the request sent ripples through the station. Some delegates resisted, others supported it. Selly approved it. The Grand Hall filled once more. This time, the humans stood without displays. No data, no diagrams, just words. Myra stepped forward alone. "We are aware of your concerns," she said calmly, "so we want to be clear." The hall was silent. "Humanity has no interest in power over others. We don't want to lead the Conquered. We don't want special authority. We don't want control." A delegate spoke sharply. "Then what do you want?" Myra did not hesitate. "To share responsibility." That caused confusion. "Responsibility for what?" another asked. "For when things go wrong," Myra said. "For disasters, for system failures. For the moments your models don't cover." She took a slow breath. "We don't see strength as permission. We see it as obligation." Dr. Rao stepped beside her. "Our history taught us that surviving alone is possible, but surviving well requires cooperation." Park added, "If our presence frightens you, then let us limit ourselves." That caused immediate reaction. "What do you mean?" Selly asked. Mara continued. "We propose restrictions on ourselves, oversight, shared authority, transparency." The hall stirred. Ibara spoke next. "We will not build weapons here. We will not command fleets. We will not claim leadership roles unless invited." A senior delegate leaned forward. "Why would you accept such limits?" Mara's answer was simple. "Because trust matters more than speed." Silence followed. Then something unexpected happened. A delegate from a disaster-prone star cluster stood. Their voice shook slightly. My people lost 3 colonies to environmental collapse. No enemy, no war, just failure. They looked at the humans. Where were you during the station crisis? Ibarra answered gently. Here, the delegate nodded. Then I support humanity's proposal. Another delegate stood, then another, not all, but enough. The fear did not vanish, but it changed shape. It became caution mixed with hope. Later, Selly walked with Myra through a long corridor overlooking the station's core. You chose restraint, Selly said. That surprised them. Myra smiled. It surprises humans too sometimes. Power restrained is rare, Selly said. Myra looked thoughtful. Unrestrained power ends badly. We learned that the hard way. Selly stopped walking. You speak of lessons without showing scars. Mara met her gaze. Some scars are shared privately. The Conquered voted that cycle. Humanity was granted full membership with conditions. Shared oversight roles. Cooperative disaster response units. Open research exchanges, not rulers, partners. As the vote result echoed through the station, reactions varied. Relief. Concern, excitement, but one truth was clear. The galaxy no longer saw humans as a threat. It saw them as something more difficult to categorize, a species that could break things, but chose not to. Selly watched the humans from the observation deck later, speaking with engineers and medics, already planning systems that might never be needed. Ambassador, Plo said softly, the Deathworlders were feared not for their violence, but for their restraint. Selly nodded. Yes, she said, and that may be their greatest strength. Far beyond Aster Vale, stars continued their slow dance, storms still formed. Systems would still fail. But now the galaxy knew something important. When the universe pushed back, humanity would push together. It arrived through meetings, drafts, and long discussions that stretched across cycles. The Galactic Conquered was old, careful, and slow by design. It did not rush toward new ideas, but it listened. Humanity's admission came with limits, but also with responsibility. The humans accepted both without complaint. They did not ask for better seating in the Grand Hall. They did not ask for authority symbols or titles. They asked for work. Ambassador Selly Varn watched the first joint sessions with quiet amazement. Humans sat beside Conquered engineers, medics, and planners, exchanging ideas without trying to dominate the conversation. When a proposal was rejected, they adjusted. When a concern was raised, they listened. This alone made them unusual. One of the first changes came in infrastructure planning. Engineer Tomas Ibarra stood before a hollow display showing Aster Vale's power network. Around him floated engineers from 5 different species. Your station survived the interference wave, Ibarra said, but it survived despite its design, not because of it. No one argued. He highlighted new layers on the display. We suggest adaptive routing, not perfect symmetry, acceptable imbalance. A Conquered engineer hesitated. That goes against our design philosophy, Ibarra nodded. It did against ours too, at first. The proposal passed. Medical cooperation followed. Dr. Rao worked with Conquered healers to create response teams for multi-species emergencies. Instead of species-specific units, the humans suggested mixed teams trained in universal stress patterns. Pain, fear, shock, these look different, Rao explained, but they behave similarly. A Lurin medic blinked. You trained for this without meeting us? Rao smiled. We trained for each other? Cultural shifts were slower. Some species struggled with the idea of planning for failure. Teaching children about emergencies felt wrong to them. It felt like inviting danger. Park addressed this gently during cultural forums. Preparation is not fear, she said. It's care. She shared stories of human communities practicing for storms they hoped would never come. Of kindness forming under pressure, many listeners were silent. Some were moved, others were unsettled. The biggest change came when the Conquered rewrote a long-standing law, Deathworld exclusion protocols. For centuries, species from unstable planets had been denied full participation. They were considered risks. Now, with human input, the Conquered revised the language. Risk was not a flaw, it was a condition. Ambassador Selly read the new draft slowly. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from understanding. This will change who we are, she said. Mara Ellison stood beside her. Only a little, mostly it will change who you allow. The vote passed narrowly. Species once barred from space stations were invited back, carefully, respectfully, with support systems designed by humans who understood unstable worlds. Aster Vale itself began to change, not in appearance but in behavior. Emergency drills were introduced, not alarms but exercises. Backup systems were tested openly. Failure simulations became part of training. At first, delegates resisted, then they adapted, and something unexpected happened. Confidence grew. Not the fragile confidence of perfection, but the solid confidence of preparation. Selly noticed it in herself. When a minor power fluctuation occurred weeks later, she did not freeze. She did not panic. She checked her options. The station recovered smoothly. Mara noticed and smiled quietly. "You're thinking like a Deathworlder," she said. Selly considered that. "Perhaps I am learning." As months passed, human advisors rotated through conquered facilities. They never stayed long. They trained, documented, and moved on. They left behind frameworks, not control. One night, Selly and Mara walked along the station's outer ring, stars drifting endlessly beyond the glass. "You've changed us," Selly said. Mara shook her head. "You changed yourselves." Selly stopped walking. "Do you ever worry we will misuse what you've taught us?" Mara looked thoughtful. "Every day. Then why share it? Because not sharing it would be worse." The Concord's annual address came sooner than expected. For the first time, Selly invited Mara to stand beside her, not as a speaker but as a presence. The address focused on resilience, on cooperation, on shared responsibility. No mention of dominance, no mention of fear. The response was quiet and lasting. Across the galaxy, small changes echoed. Stations reinforced quietly. Trade routes gained emergency shelters. Colonies formed mutual aid pacts. The galaxy did not become stronger overnight, but it became flexible. Selly reviewed reports late into one cycle. She noticed something new. When crises occurred, panic decreased. When systems failed, recovery improved. Humanity had not conquered anything. It had taught the galaxy how to bend without breaking. Plo floated into her office. "Ambassador, do you think the Conquered needed humans?" Selly considered the question. "I think," she said slowly, "we needed to learn what they already knew." "And what is that?" "That survival is not about avoiding danger," Selly said. "It's about being ready for it and choosing kindness anyway." Far away, Earth continued its storms. Its plate still shifted, its people still struggled and laughed and endured. And now their lessons echoed among the stars. The galaxy was no longer a place that feared instability. It was a place that prepared for it, and humanity, once the unexpected guest, had become the quiet teacher. The final part remained unwritten. But one thing was already clear: the galaxy would never return to glass. It had learned to bend, and that would save it. They would argue over words, over causes, over dates and votes and policy changes. They would write long papers and hold careful debates, but all of them would circle the same moment. The day humanity arrived at Aster Vale. Ambassador Selly Varn stood once more in the Grand Hall. The space looked the same as it always had, wide, calm, and beautiful, but she knew better now. It was stronger. The hall was full again, but the energy was different. Species that once sat apart now shared sections. Climate fields overlapped by design. Emergency indicators were visible, not hidden. Prepared. Selly watched a young delegate from a once-excluded Deathworld species speak freely at the central platform. Their voice shook slightly, but they were there. That alone would have been impossible before humanity. Mara Ellison stood near the side of the hall, no longer the center of attention. Humans had learned to step back once their work was done. She spoke quietly with engineers and diplomats, offering advice only when asked. She looked content. Selly approached her. "You're quiet today," Mara smiled. "That's usually a good sign," Selly nodded. "The Conquered functions better now, fewer emergencies, faster recovery." "And fewer surprises?" Mara asked. Selly considered. "No, just fewer disasters." They watched the hall together. A Conquered historian activated a holo display nearby, showing a timeline of recent decades. It highlighted changes, infrastructure upgrades, new membership rules, shared response networks. At the center of the display was a single marker. Sol System Entry Year 0 of Resilience Era. Selly followed Mara's gaze to it. "They named an era after your arrival." Mara winced slightly. "We didn't ask for that." "No," Selly said. "You didn't ask for anything." That, Selly knew, was what unsettled the galaxy most. Humanity had not arrived with fleets or demands. It had arrived with habits, quiet ones. Habits formed under pressure, habits of checking backups, of helping neighbors, of assuming tomorrow might be hard and preparing anyway. Those habits spread. A junior delegate approached Selly and Mara. Ambassador Varn, they said politely. May I ask the human envoy a question? Mara nodded. Of course, the delegate hesitated. Why do humans still call themselves newcomers? Mara thought for a moment. Because we are, she said. The galaxy existed long before us. But you changed it, the delegate said. Mara smiled softly. The galaxy was ready to change, we just showed up at the right time. The delegate bowed slightly and left. Selly turned to Mara. You still underestimate your impact. Mara shrugged. We're used to focusing on the next problem. Selly laughed quietly. That may be the most human thing I've heard. Later that cycle, Selly reviewed old records, messages from before humanity's arrival. She found the original invitation file. It was still marked. Sent in error. She changed the tag, sent at the right time. The Concord's final session of the cycle began with a moment of reflection, not silence but shared awareness. The delegates stood not for ceremony but for memory. Selly spoke last. Once, she said, we believed peace meant removing all danger. We believed stability was permanent. We believed control was safety. She looked across the hall, meeting many eyes. We were wrong. No one objected. We have learned that peace is maintained, not preserved. That stability requires effort. That safety comes from preparation and trust. She paused. And we learned this not from conquerors, but from survivors. Her gaze found Mara. Humanity arrived from a world that demanded resilience. Instead of hiding that truth, they shared it. The hall responded with a quiet sound, not applause, but agreement. After the session, Selly and Mara walked along the outer ring one final time. The stars were bright, endless. Will humans stay involved forever? Selly asked. Mara shook her head. Probably not like this. We'll step back more over time. And when the galaxy forgets these lessons, Mara smiled a little sadly, then we'll remind you, or someone else will. Selly stopped. You sound certain. I am, Mara said, because once a species learns how to endure, it doesn't unlearn it. They stood in silence. Far away, a small alert chimed, routine, a minor system fluctuation. It resolved itself smoothly. No panic, no fear, just action. Selly watched it happen and felt a deep, steady calm. The galaxy had not become safer, it had become wiser. And humanity, those fragile Deathworlders who should never have survived, had not arrived as destroyers. They had arrived as proof that life could grow strong under pressure, proof that kindness could exist alongside hardship, proof that resilience was not loud. Years later, when new species joined the conquered, they would hear the story, not about weapons, not about wars, but about the day the galaxy met beings from a Deathworld and learned how to stand a little straighter because of them. And the final truth, written quietly in the Conquered's deepest archives, would read,